Welcome to The Daily Pause with your host, Ron Powers. All right. Hey, this is Ron with your Daily Pause. I wanted to take a pause and think about and just really analyze and go over Joe Biden's speech, the State of the Union to Congress. And we wanted to start off with really just figuring out what he really means, what is true and what is not. I want to start off with, I was in a Bible study this morning and I wanted to start off with a verse that really jumped out to me. I was in Acts chapter 13, where it shows the Apostle Paul addressing somebody that was actually lying and deceiving and pulling people away from the faith. And I just want you to hear his response, because a lot of times we get this, how should you act as a Christian or as a believer, towards things that you disagree with, towards things that are not true at all, when people are spreading lies. And that's what I believe as we go through the State of the Union, you'll find some bold-faced lies. So anyway, the Barnabas and Paul, they were out preaching, and there was a certain man, Sergius Paulus, a man of intelligence, and he had summoned Barnabas and Paul and sought to hear the word of God. But Elymas, a magician, was opposing them, seeking to turn the proconsul away from the faith. And that's who this Sergius was a part of. It says, but Saul, who was also known as Paul, filled with the Holy Spirit, fixed his gaze on him and said, "You who are full of deceit and fraud, you son of the devil, you're an enemy to righteousness. Will you not cease the ways and make crooked the straight ways of the Lord?" And so basically what he's saying, hey, you're a son of the devil. You're doing his work. And he just came and called it right out. And this is because this magician was trying to draw Sergius away from the faith. And Sergius was part of the proconsul. So let me look at the State of the Union address and say, does it have anything to do with that? And so there was a State of the Union address, and that came for everyone to see. And we saw that with Joe Biden, and he stood in front of everybody and started to proclaim things about our country. And when he did that, some things were not true, and he got heckled. And there were quite a few people that had issue with that. And so let's look at the issues that he said that people are taking issue with. And that is, here's one website they pulled out 15. I'm just going to go over a lot of them, but some of them not too much. Chuck Schumer, the minority leader. No, Chuck Schumer is the Senate majority leader, but that's not really necessarily a lie. It's just that, I think Biden is having a difficult time with his thoughts. He's losing it, as everybody obviously knows. He's not making sense. He mumbles a lot, and sometimes you just don't even know what he's saying or where he thinks he's at. So, but here's one that I thought was a very deceptive lie, and that was that he said that he created more jobs in 2 years than any other president. And that's just a bold-faced lie, because if you think about it, what had happened right as he got in? Well, a year before, under President Trump, they had the WHO and the CDC, and they shut down the whole world. Somehow these unelected officials shut down every country, and it just wiped out businesses across our country. Literally millions of people stayed home from work. I remember personally not allowed to go to work for a while, to work from home. I was one of the fortunate, but not everyone can do that. I work in a job where I can work with a computer. But there are many people that were out of work and were essentially laid off because everything was closed. So when they began to open it up, and it happened to be on Joe's watch, when they opened it up, well, of course you're going to have a ton of jobs because people are returning back to what they once had. And so he called it the fastest growth in 40 years. Well, that's a lie, because it's not really a growth. It's coming back from the dead pretty much. And so, growth would be, what are new jobs that were created? Well, we know we lost lots of jobs. I mean, I think the first week when he canceled the Keystone Pipeline, I mean, that was 70,000 jobs, if I remember right. And that's quite a few. And so it's item after item that went the same way, where jobs were laid off and business was being carried overseas. And so it was not the fastest growing. Inflation is coming down. Well, I don't think anybody believes that. I mean, we saw record gas prices. If they come down, they come down the week before he makes the speech so he can claim it. But really, if you look at it, I mean, gas prices went through the roof. And when gas prices go through the roof, what else goes through the roof? Everything, food, things that you buy in the store, because they got to get shipped through things that burn gas, trucks, planes, trains, etc. And so there's no way that inflation is coming down. Also, when you have out of control spending, they just had an omnibus bill of what, $1.7 trillion. I mean, that I've never even heard of $1 trillion budgets, but because we're spending so much and we're printing money right off the printing press, not backed by anything, you obviously have inflation. And so it is out of control. So it's not coming down. So that's another bold-faced lie. We have another one which was that the greatest threat to democracy was on January 6th. And he talks about how, these crazy extremists stormed the Capitol. You know what? That is not what happened at all. I mean, for one, if there was an insurrection, you would have had weapons. Nobody came with weapons. I mean, you don't do an insurrection without a weapon. There's no threat, right? And so if anyone got shot, it was people that came to this Capitol, people like Ashley Babbitt, which was a veteran, and she was just shamelessly killed. And if you hear the story of Jake Lang with J6 Truth, you will see that these poor people were beat almost to death, and some people actually were just for being there. And so this is another lie that he said. And basically, he was calling out the conservatives, saying you guys are a terror to democracy. And by the way, this country is not a democracy. It's a republic, to the republic for which it stands. 3, is responsible for the largest deficit cut in history. No, he's not, actually, not at all. And so you can go and you can see, I mean, his spending has increased, more than $10 trillion since the first month he took office. I mean, you can go down the thing. In fact, he was Burgess Owens did a fact check, and Burgess Owens for Congress, and his fact check says federal spending increased by over 10 trillion in 2021 to 2022, a record for a president's first 2 years in office. So yes, Republicans trying to cut the Social Security. I don't know if you saw the speech, but when he did that speech and he said, some Republicans are trying to sunset the Social Security, and you heard an overwhelming boo and liar and all that, because it was a lie, bold-faced lie. And basically he backpedaled. He said, well, not all of you. Well, actually very small, not even enough to a significant amount. So he kept backpedaling. These people are no. And, the majority leader, Kevin McCarthy, had said, no, this is not on the docket. This is not on the table to cut away. So he is saying that the Republicans do support Social Security. But you know what Joe is trying to do? He's trying to sow seeds of division. And that's what I feel he was doing. So he was saying things that were not true. And if there is one or two that may have put something out there, and he makes it as if it were the Republican Party. And basically what he's trying to say is, hey, anybody who's old that wants a Social Security check, you want to vote for a Democrat, vote for me. That's basically what he's doing there. So I just thought that was really deceptive. He talked about the fires, out of control. They burned the size of the state of Missouri. Now that could just be his senility kicking in, but it definitely was not that. They did have a lot of fires burned, especially in California. I mean, we had 7.5 million acres burned across the states, but that's nowhere near 44.6 million acres that Missouri represents, the state of Missouri. So what else did he do? Biden blames the crime wave on COVID. Well, it's really after the Democrats defunded the police. You had all those free zones, free of police, and in what was it, in Portland and Seattle, and so things got crazy. You look at your Democrat-run cities, Democrats-run cities like New York and in Chicago and Los Angeles and Minneapolis. These places had tons of millions and millions of dollars of damage. People are breaking windows. I mean, you look at New York, it was unsafe. Remember the mostly peaceful protest? I mean, things were out of control. This is because there is no one's paying the penalties for their crimes. Police are even afraid to go in with force because of what happens. Everyone's like, oh, hate crime and all that stuff. And so we really need a strong police force once again that's backed up. And they were not getting the backing from Democrats. And so this is a lie when he says COVID caused that. No, it's not. It's when you get rid of the strong arm of the law. Now, yes, there are some abuses here and there. And boy, I tell you, they love to expound on that and play it over and over ad nauseum on the news as if it were something that were normal and regular, but it's not. Okay, what else? Let's see. Immigration reform, he said, will secure the border. That is not true at all. You know what's going to secure the border? A wall that you can't cross. If you say, hey, we want you to show up to a court in a year or in 6 months to see if you can come over after you're already over, you're not going to show up to court. You're already over the border and you are in the country. And so again, this is not the kind of reform that we need. We need to do a wall. It's interesting that when Joe Biden did his State of the Address, he had a wall, a fence put around the Capitol building to keep people out, keep the people he didn't want in out. Well, every good, strong country has strong borders because they don't want just anyone in. With all the people coming in, and I'll close with this in a couple minutes, is what President Trump describes as our border, which he gave a true State of the Union address. Let me just go a couple more. Mass shootings went down after the assault weapons ban. So he's pushing assault weapons ban again. He wants to get rid of all assault weapons. What is an assault weapon? Is it a semi-automatic rifle? Do you know that even an old-fashioned hand pistol, the guns, the 6-shooters, that is a semi-automatic gun? And semi-automatic rifles have been around. But the ones that look scary, like an AR-15, it looks like something the military would use. They are trying to say that that's what an assault weapon is a semi-automatic. And look at the scary ones. When people have used them for many, many years before the AR came out. And so again, if you put a little wood on the handle, does that make it okay? Because it sure seems like there's a double standard there. But I think it's a deceptive standard because once you get the semi-automatic restricted rifle, then you start going down the line and say, well, this also is one. Oh, this also is one. And next thing you know, people are like, oh, I didn't know that one was. And so anyway, he also said that life-saving pro-life laws are extreme. So he is definitely not for pro-life. He wants to have the babies freely aborted through the whole 9 months of pregnancy. How extreme is that? The day before being birthed, you could actually be aborted. That is just, to me, that is sickening. And that is something that, Maylock and Bale would be very proud of. And so unfortunately, they have gone down that way. And he says, and last I'll say, he says he's here to be president for all Americans. Well, we know that that's not the case because he calls people that are conservative or MAGA Republicans as extremists and terrorists. And he gives plenty of warnings about that, how they're dangerous. So I don't believe Joe Biden for a minute on him wanting to unify the country, especially when he said stuff like Republicans want to end Social Security, which is a bold-faced lie. That's sowing seeds of division. As far as the real State of the Union, I just want you to hear, if you didn't, President Trump's State of the Union, and I believe that is much, much more accurate than anything that you heard from Joe Biden. So let me just go with that. Here we go.
Millions of dollars from smuggling poison to kill our people and to kill our children. Savage killers, rapists, and violent criminals are being released from jail to continue their crime wave. And under Biden, the murder rate has reached the highest in the history of our country. Biden and the radical Democrats have wasted trillions of dollars and caused the worst inflation in half a century. Real wages are down 21 months in a row. Gas prices have soared and are now going up much higher than even before. And the typical American family is paying $2,200 in increased energy and food costs each year. Joe Biden's weaponized Justice Department, and I'm a victim of it, is persecuting his political opponents. His administration is waging war on free speech. They're trying to indoctrinate and mutilate our children. He's leading us to the brink of World War III. And on top of all of that, he's the most corrupt president in American history, and it's not even close. But the good news is we are going to reverse every single crisis, calamity, and disaster that Joe Biden has created.
So yeah, that's it ends with some good hope there. And I believe that we need to stay faithful to what is right in our voting and get out there and vote when we need to vote, work the polls, watch the polls. We need to stop this cheating, because if we can stop the cheating and everyone's voice is truly heard, we can turn this country around. The Lord will turn it around. He's promised, and I believe that he is going to. I wanted to end with a verse. Again, what is a Christian response to those that lie? And, we always picture Jesus a lot of times as all soft and kind, and he is soft and kind and loving and merciful. But at the same time, he does love justice, and he calls things out. He calls them out as they are. And so in John chapter 8, again, I'm going to pull it out of God's word here, 40 verse 44. So he's addressing the Pharisees. The Pharisees are giving him a hard time. He's spreading truth. He's spreading the message of salvation to people. People are coming to him. People are being set free. People are being healed, and they didn't like this. They were the ones in charge, them and Rome, kind of a mixture there. And they did not want to give up their power structure. Sounds like very similar to what we see in our own issues with the deep state, wanting their power. But this is what Jesus said to these people that would lie and deceive and tell people that Jesus was the false prophet. And it says, Jesus saying this, "You are of your father, the devil." It says, "And you want to do the desires of your father. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. Whenever he speaks a lie, he speaks of his own nature, for he is a liar and the father of lies." And so basically what he's saying is, your father is a liar and you're of your father. And so we must, do a self-inspection of our own selves and say, hey, do we love truth, or are we willing to bend the truth to gain things? And so, again, I just would encourage you to just chase after truth, and the truth will set you free. And so thanks for listening, and I'll see you on another Daily Pause.